Okay, so today we're going to be learning about rewriting equations in slope-intercept form. So the first thing you need to do is update your table of contents. This will be on page 28. Unless you are in period 5, it will be on page 25. So go ahead and update your table of contents, then turn to your next blank page in your notebook and get your page titled, dated, numbered. Okay, so we're going to be learning today how to rewrite equations in slope-intercept form. What we want the equation to look like when we're done is this format. Y equals a number times x plus our slope, right? Or sorry, not our slope, our y-intercept. So y equals our slope times x plus or minus our y-intercept, okay? So basically what we're doing is solving for y. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take a look at example 1. You need to write this in your notebook, and you're going to write down the steps. So I'm going to treat this just like an equation, a regular equation, and I want to get y by itself. So I'm trying to isolate the value of y. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of everything that's not y from that side. So the first thing I want to do is subtract 8x from both sides. Okay, now remember 8x is not a like term with 42, so I cannot combine it with 42. So I'm just going to write it side by side next to 42. So I notice that in my equation I want the x's to go first. So I'm going to write the negative 8x first, and I'm going to write minus 42 second. Okay, then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and isolate y even more by dividing by 7. Now, I'm going to divide the left side by 7, and I'm going to divide both of the parts on the right side by 7. Okay, now, if 7 doesn't go into both of the parts evenly, that's okay, because sometimes our slope or our y-intercept could be a fraction. So that just means in this case that our slope is a fraction. Our slope is negative 8/7. And now 7 does go into 42 evenly. That would give me, negative 6. Okay, so here's your final answer. Y equals negative 8/7 x minus 6. Make sure you have this whole example written into your notebook. Okay, so here's another example. Okay, this equation is currently written into point slope form, and again we want it to look like in the end slope-intercept form, which looks like y equals mx plus b. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to isolate y. Okay, now one of the things I notice here is that I would like to remove this negative 3 by adding it, but I can't really add it to the other side because I have like parentheses on the other side here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I can either distribute that fraction to get rid of the parentheses, or I can get rid of the fraction. There's a couple different ways I can do it. I'm going to show you guys where I get rid of the fraction first and then I distribute next. So to get rid of this fraction, I'm going to multiply by 3 on the right side, and I'm going to multiply by 3 to both terms on the left side. So that will give me 3y minus 9 equals, these 3's essentially cancel each other out, and I get negative 1 times x minus 4. Okay, now that I've got rid of my fraction, it's a little bit easier for me to distribute here. So I'm going to distribute the negative 1 to both terms. So on my next step, I would get 3y minus 9 equals negative 1x minus, actually not minus, because a negative times a negative is a positive 4. Okay, now I can go ahead and try to start solving for y. So I can go ahead and move this positive 9 to the other side with its like term. Its like term is 4, so I'm going to go ahead and add those two together. And so I get 3y equals negative 1x plus 13. Okay, and last, I'm going to go ahead and divide by 3 to isolate y. So when I divide by 3, I'm going to do that to all the parts. Now, it doesn't go in evenly to all the parts. I am getting some fractions, so that's okay. I'm just going to write my answer with fractions in it. So I get y equals negative 1/3 x plus 13/3. As long as they're reduced fractions, I can have them in my answer. So this would be my final answer to my problem. It's written in slope-intercept form, so it's in the form of y equals m times x plus b. Make sure you have this example written into your notebook. Okay, next, example number 3. Okay, we have another equation with some fractions in it. So, I don't really like to work with fractions. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these fractions so that I can write my final equation in slope-intercept form, which is in the form of y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the 3 by multiplying all the parts of the equation by 3. Okay, this works out nicely because I see the 3's here cancel and the 3's by the x cancel. So now what I'm left with is negative 1y equals 3 times negative 1 is negative 3, and then I'm left here with negative 2x. Okay, now one thing I see is that I have a negative 1 multiplying by y. So to get rid of that, I can divide by negative 1 because I'm trying to isolate y here. Okay, when I do that, I get y equals 3 plus 2x. Now, I notice here that my equation doesn't look quite right because I need to have it in the form of y equals mx plus b, with the m and the x coming before the b term. So all I have to do is reorder this. Okay, the 2x is positive, so I'm going to put that first. The 3 was also positive, so I'm going to put plus 3 because it was a positive 3 last. This would be my final answer of my equation. I must make sure that it's ordered correctly in the right order in order for it to be in slope-intercept form. Make sure you have this one copied into your notebook. Okay, your last example for today is this one. Okay, I noticed that everything is on the right side of the equation and there's only a 0 on the left side of the equation. Again, I'm trying to put this equation into slope-intercept form, which looks like y equals mx plus b. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and move the y term to the side it belongs on. So I'm going to go ahead and this y term is a positive 5y. It's positive. Okay, since it's positive, I'm going to go ahead and subtract it to get rid of it. If I were to add 5y to that side, 5y plus 5y would make 10y. That wouldn't make it go away. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and subtract it. 5y minus 5y makes 0. Now, on the other side, the left side, I now have negative 5y because 0 minus 5y is just negative 5y. And on the right side, I have all this other stuff still over here. Okay, so I'm just going to drop that down into my equation. Negative 15 minus 2x. All right, so last, I'm still trying to get y by itself on the left side. So y is multiplying by negative 5. So in order to isolate it, I'm going to divide by negative 5 to all the parts. Okay, so now what do I get? I'm left with y equals negative 15 divided by negative 5 is a positive 3, and negative 2 cannot be divided by negative 5. That doesn't go in evenly, but a negative divided by negative is also a positive. So I'm just going to write positive 2/5 x. Now, when I'm looking at this, I notice that my y-intercept is written first and my slope is written second. So I want to reorder those. So I'm going to go ahead and reorder them and say that I get 2/5 x in the front, and I'm going to move this positive 3, so plus 3, to the back. That is my final answer. Make sure, please, that you have this one written into your notebook.